After my last quick video on the texture paint, I wanted to dive deeper into the topic, and so I set out to answer a few questions. Like, what can we do to make these results more realistic, and is there a cheaper alternative for mass production of these bases? One gripe I have with the Crackle medium is that it rarely looks like the real deal, especially when applied too thin. So while we can observe similar effects, especially on dry waterbeds where the bodies of water transported very fine sediment, more often than not we have sediments that are of varying grain sizes and mixed grain sizes. So the resulting pattern does not resemble these sharp lines. They're more wrinkly and curved, as you can see in the pictures. So the idea was to find what ratio of crackle texture and grainy texture gives the most interesting result. For that I created mixes of different ratios that I applied to 5 bases, starting with pure crackle paint, followed by various mixes of different ratios of crackle and grainy texture paint. God, I hate math. I barely passed high school because of it. And let's face it, I went with my gut feeling anyway when creating the mixes, but they all just got gradually increasing amounts of grainy texture paint mixed in. The results were interesting. The 2 bases on the left definitely need a coat of varnish so the small bits don't fall off while painting. The base with pure crackle medium looks especially bad because I applied a very thin layer. As far as the look of the texture goes, I feel like as soon as you add a bit of the grainy paint, the cracks start to get more realistic instantly. The second one looks better, but there is not a lot of difference to the 50-50 mix on the right. That's why I disregarded the second base too for my further plans. Comparing the third and fourth base, it becomes more evident again that a big factor is the thickness of the layer. It adds the most variety of chunk sizes and crack width. So as I was looking at the last base, I thought it would be interesting to deliberately put down a thicker layer surrounded by pure grainy texture. So I did a 6th base, hoping for more dramatic chunk sizes and bigger cracks. And it worked out pretty good. This way you can create detail more deliberately if you want to use the texture paint for your more planned out projects. I decided to paint a few of these bases before I would try to see what alternatives are available to create this type of texture, and I mainly used washes and dry brushing. If you like my videos and want to help me out in return, it's not really difficult. Simply hit the like button, and subscribing and leaving a comment helps tremendously on top of that. If you want to help me being able to create more frequent videos, consider joining my Patreon campaign. There's a lot of videos on there that will help you level up your painting, but I also release as much as I can on YouTube, and if you want to support that, you can join at the $1 or $2 level and get access to the Discord server and get regular feedback and support for your projects. When the Games Workshop paints came out, I was looking into Crackle Mediums already, and I found out that most of the clear two-step variants don't work. They are designed to create cracks in the layer you paint over and not crack themselves, so don't use these. The best product I have come across personally is the Golden Acrylics Crackle Paste. You can find a link in the description where you can buy it. I somehow misplaced my pot during my recent move, so I was using the Distress Paste I also had instead, which also works, but it's a very tiny amount and not really ideal if you want to do a lot of these bases. Again, I can only highly suggest that you're using the Golden Acrylics Crackle Paste. It works and it has different amounts available, so you can go crazy. First, let's look into 2 common mistakes using these Crackle Pastes. I wanted to add color to mine and some texture through various grain sizes. I wanted to control the variable of texture edit as well, so I prepared a mix of just color and Crackle Medium 2. But as you can see, if you mix in too much of the paint, the crackle effect does not happen. Another thing I wanted to try was mixed grain sizes, so I prepared a mix of Crackle Paste with only a little bit of added color and then added actual soil and dirt. But the problem is that the big chunks come off easily when dry brushing, and apparently the fine grain particles prevent cracks from forming at all. For the next try, I added modeling sand that had the same grain size as the Games Workshop grainy texture paints and a bit of paint. After everything was thoroughly mixed, I placed a thick layer in the middle of the base and mixed in more modeling sand to create a version of the grainy texture paint. You can get ready-made texture paste from a lot of manufacturers, like the Vallejo texture and AK Terrains, but I don't like to have that many different products, so I used the Crackle Paste and just mixed in modeling sand and it worked fine. With the following bases, I'm trying to mimic the results I got with the Games Workshop products. So with this base, I tried to copy the one I did with the thicker layer in the middle and the grainy paste on the outside. And for the next base, I tried to get the same result as with the 70% mix. And the 85% mix. So these are the painted results of the do-it-yourself mixes and how they compare to the equivalent ratios and approaches with the Games Workshop products. Pretty close. I really like these products when you want to do quick bases, and with a little bit of mixing and experimenting, you can get really unique and interesting results. And with a lot of companies carrying cheaper alternatives, they even become viable for mass production at a reasonable investment. I hope you learned something, stay creative, and I'll see you next video.